There's been much discussion recently about increasing the number of women in executive level positions and on boards in corporate Australia. Of Australia's ASX 200 companies, only 13% of women have senior executive positions and 62% of the ASX 200 have zero female executive presence. The numbers are at best uninspired and at worst demoralising and alarming. So is there any chance that this will change, given there are so many myths surrounding women working in top jobs?
Women are entering the workplace like never before. They have increasingly done so over decades. But that problem with that blockage of getting further up the ranks is continuing. And can I also say we still have a problem around pay equity as well, and that applies, I think, right through the workplace.
And is that how do you see that being addressed then?
Well, the pay equity issue, there's been a lot of really good research done on that in Australia. And by the way, pay equity stats are really robust. They don't compare part-time to full-time or different ranks. I mean, they're quite robust. So that's one of my points in the myth. Just the data's terrific, and we've done a lot of work on it. Australians, by the way, in general, don't believe there should be a gender pay gap. They think it's unacceptable. At the moment, it's just over 17%, which is the same as 25 years ago. So we're not in a good place with that. They are averages, and clearly it doesn't apply all over the place. The organisations that I'm familiar with are starting to look at this quite specifically. They're doing things like pay audits, and they're actually comparing like-for-like jobs and looking at and trying to identify if there are problems and looking at their whole remuneration structure. So I think some of that is starting to happen. The ASX Corporate Governance Council's guidelines, which have come out around diversity, are recommending that is one of the things that is looked at, or at least that it's taken into account.
Flexible work arrangements, that also seems like a key issue. Are there companies that are already doing that quite well?
There are some organisations that have been doing it for, I think, longer than others. I think some of the better examples are probably some of the big banks are now starting to introduce quite big programs. Westpac, NAB, ANZ have all got flexible work programs, and more people are accessing that. Men and women. I mean, I think that the key here is to make it, if you want to normalise it, you've got to get men involved as well. And that's the key, of course, to changing what happens at home as well, because we haven't mentioned that. And a lot of the issues that I talk about here are about social norms and stereotypes, not just business ones. Some of the companies like McDonald's and so on are doing some really interesting stuff around that. Woolworths have also done some really, really interesting stuff. And some of the big resources companies have got some interesting practices.
We're students here in Lausanne, Switzerland from Pepperdine University, and today we're advocating equal pay day. So we're out here to talk to people, to raise awareness and really work to help correct this injustice, this inequality that's happening in Switzerland and around the world.
Tomorrow, on March 11th, over 50 women that represent some of the most significant women in all of Switzerland are going to gather together to help bring awareness to this issue.
It's easy to believe in the developed world that discrimination doesn't exist anymore. But to find out that it exists, and it exists so severely, is just astonishing.
Darkness falls and distance calls, you still